Hello friends, and welcome back. Today I'm going to be bringing you along as I begin work on another commissioned piece. This one is going to be a specified blue and green geode. So I am attaching stones here to the sidewalls of my board. I am using clear crystal points and also amazonite stone, which is the turquoise blue. It's in two different sizes. There are the chips around the perimeters of my stations and the larger pieces within the geode stations themselves. You can see the crystal, that's the amazonite. You can see also the crystal quartz points laying there on my primed board. Now I had gessoed this board. It's very important to do that before you begin work on wood with resin, because there's a lot of air in the wood and you want to be able to seal that nicely so that you don't get any unnecessary bubbles. I was showing you there some stones. They were some glass beads, probably about 8 to 10 millimeters in size. And I actually found those from Dollar General, and they're quite pretty. They were multi-bezeled stones, and so they really did capture the light a lot. And I wanted to see how they worked within my geode, so I'm giving them a try. I already have three different colors of fiberglass laid down into my stations here, clear, platinum, and like an azure color. There I'm showing you the pigment pastes that I'll be using. They're both by Res, and I've used them a few times here lately. That is the Emerald Teal and Aqua Ocean. Both of them came from Laura's Art Corner. I will also be using Pale Iridron Gold, which is a powder pigment. And I also got that from Laura's Art Corner. And I'll be using Antique Lace, which is a powder pigment that I got from Dryer Days Art Studio. It's one of my all-time favorites. It is part of her Color Joy collection. And I do have a 10% off coupon. If you want to use that, you're welcome to. There's no pressure here. But it's Love Res, and that's LUVRES 10, and I will put that down in the description if you're interested in hopping over to Dryer Days Art Studio and picking up that beautiful pigment. So I am currently mixing 6 ounces of resin, and I'm just sprinkling it over my stones. Now, you don't want to drown your stones. If you're new to resin, you know that if you just put too much resin over top of your glass, then what's going to happen is it's going to take away the luster. And that's kind of opposite of what we want to be doing for our geodes. We love the luster. We want to see that shine. So just kind of methodically have a plan and drizzle over the stones lightly, just enough so that it continues to drizzle from the top where you laid it all the way down to the bottom and secures itself. I'm using some Prussian Blue alcohol ink, again from Geode Art Studio. It's a beautiful, rich blue alcohol ink, again from her Color Joy collection. And I'm adding it to a pyramid that I have over, a mini pyramid that I have over to my side. All right, so we're next day. My stations are set in place, and I want it to go ahead and mix up another 6 to 6.5 ounces of resin. I am using Marine's Pro Art resin, and it really does give a nice finish. I do highly recommend that for any resin that you use your appropriate personal protective equipment, your gloves and your respirator mask in the least. And specifically for this particular resin, I would definitely do that as well. I'm just mixing up some matching glitter here. I can't remember the name of it offhand, but I'll put it in the description down below. And I'm putting it in a bag so that I can pipe it on later. And I'm doing it now because I want it to thicken. Thickened resin generally will stay where you put it. All right, so I have some gold findings that I had laid down inside of the glitter as well, just to bring some more authenticity to the geode sections. And I am mixing my pigment paste, and that emerald green is extremely saturated, so it takes very little bit to get a nice dark rich color. The Aqua Ocean is a beautiful aqua color, but it's a little bit more transparent than the emerald green, and it might take you a couple of times to get the opacity that you want. And in my oceans, I like the transparency because it gives me depth. But with this particular project, I want my pigments to be opaque. And I'm just moving that glitter on down and sticking it back and cutting the excess of the bag off and sticking it back down in there and just getting it ready. I'm going to go ahead and fold my cup so I can have a nice, neat turnout of my resin. And I just love the way this aqua makes those stations pop. So I'm just trying to move my pigments around and let them combine a little bit, warm them up so that they're more likely to move and shift, and taking a little bit of a stick, a toothpick, and encouraging that to happen. And my emerald teal has taken over a little bit more here than what I wanted. I wanted to see more of that aqua color, at least blending a little bit. All right, so I'm taking my antique lace right now, and I'm just adding that in a little bit here and there. And this is when I begin to see where I'm going to go with this. I wasn't really sure when I first laid down these colors if I made the right directional choice for it, but now I'm beginning to feel excited. Now you can see it in the upper corner, upper part of the screen, that I have a section there that does not have resin on it, and I really was kind of undecided whether I was going to put a third station there, but I think now I have decided to do that. Alright, so I'm taking my glitter and I am piping that around, and any excess glitter, and going ahead and circling out where I'm going to put that next station. Okay, we are here in the next day, and before I remembered to turn the camera on, I had added a few stones around that new station that I made, but nothing is secured down yet. So I just have some clear glass drizzled in and some of my masonite sitting around it. And now I'm just going to secure that with some clear resin. I've added a couple of gold glass findings to the top of my stations there, my crystal stations, and just a couple of extra pieces of fiberglass. And it's a layering, it's a building process as you go. You just have to, each time you mix that resin, to kind of look at your project and decide what more does it need, or does it need anything. So I've mixed more of my colors up, and I'm just adding it back over my board. I felt like I had lost too much of this darker green, emerald teal color, and so I'm going to add a little bit of that and all of the colors really back into it. And this is when I use my pale air-drawn gold. It really only takes just a little bit of that pigment because it is so rich and it will take over. As you can see, just that little bit, it really has added a lot of that gold. And that's why you reserve your pigment so that if it does become a little bit much, you can balance that out. All right, so now just a little bit of that antique lace is going back on. and a quick blow with my heat gun, and that just kind of helps to really spread the love around. And you're going to make sure you run your finger along the sides of this board. And you're going to want to do that each time you pour. You're going to want to do that for every 15 minutes for the next hour, making sure that you don't have any huge drips happening. While my while my resin is still wet, I'm coming back in. I'm adding just some other shapes and sizes of glass, different ways to capture the sparkle. You can use diamond dust. You can get these little gold glass findings from, I believe I got those from Let's Resin. But I've been using that little canister for quite some time. It doesn't take very much. And I'm adding in some crystal chips at this point, and I'm just kind of placing them around, adding a few more blue stones as well. It's really hard for me to stop when it comes to the geodes, and I really do like a good dazzle when it comes to them. Adding any leftover resin into my pyramid molds there, and putting them over to the side. When I have leftover resin during my projects, it can take me a week or two, but depending on how many big projects I have going on, but it's a great way to get rid of unused resin. And it's always a surprise. But I was happy to finally get those two filled. And I am still putting, probably scraping my color and making sure that you can see I still have plenty of the gold left. I'm just trying to get rid of that. I don't like wasting my resin. It's too expensive, right? Okay, here we are the early next morning, and I am very pleased with how my piece has dried. And right now we are just going to take my gold paint pen and begin to draw our geode lines. This is one of the parts that can really make or break your geode. You want to make sure that you continue moving once you start a line so that you don't have to go back and restart or pick back up, because you can always see that point of restart. And if you do have to do that, you just need to take particular care in making sure they blend well. And so you don't really necessarily want to follow the lines that are already naturally forming in the geode, like the direction that the colors are going. You just want to kind of very randomly place your lines. Don't be afraid to cross over another line. You also want varying widths of those lines on your geodes. So I'm using a bright gold here, and it has a wider tip on it. And so after I add the gold, I'm going to change up the color a little bit. You just really want to make sure that your pen is shaken up very well and that it's primed and that it's got a lot of free-flowing paint coming onto the tip. All right, so now I have more of a coppery metallic color here. And I'm not trying to take the same path as the other lines. I'm just, again, being very random in how I lay these down. And this can be really hard to do. This took me some time to kind of get the hang of, because sometimes I'm an overthinker, and it's better not to think. It's one of those times where it's better just to do it. At least for me anyways. And make sure that you're carrying your lines over the sides. You don't want an awkward stop and start line on the top, just on the edge of the geode. You can see I'm crossing over some of those gold lines, and that is perfectly wonderful. Okay, so now, as though I don't have enough, I'm going to use an even finer white pen. I'm not going to add a lot of white, but I'm going to add some. Why? Because it's another element. It's another thing for your eye to look at for interest. And it's because what you see in nature is very random. And every once in a while you may have to take your pen back over to the side and prime it again. Especially the thinner nib ones, they have a harder time keeping the paint in them. And that was a pretty new pen, so So you can see me thinking a little bit more now, and it does get a little bit harder when you have made several lines to as to being random in that. So when you get to that point, you know it's time to stop again. Okay, I let those paint marks dry, and now I am coming back over. I've added just a little bit more, another layer of glass, and I've added some more of the crystal chips and some mirrored fiberglass in a few places where I really want that reflection off of those to light up all of the other crystals and such that we have on the board. You don't want to overdo it with the reflective glass, but just enough, right? Now make sure you go between, if your crystal points were put together by yourself as a cluster, make sure that you're going in and in between those crystal points to really secure those down in the in-between areas there. You really want those secure because they are sticking out from the surface of the board. Now again, I'm using just a tiny little bit of resin on these. I'm just basically dipping in and getting my stick wet, and then I'm using that very thin bit of resin and drizzling it on any loose stones at this point. I have mixed another 6 ounces of resin at this point, and the majority of this is going to be used as a flood coat on the entire piece. This is just some very, very small glass glitter. Just small round pieces of glass glitter. Again, you really want different diameters and shapes, sizes of your textures within the geodes. That's what's going to give you that sparkle and shine. And I believe this is some diamond dust. And I'm really just trying to make sure that, you know, all the angles of these stone stations have a little bit of something or all of what I'm putting down. I'm using a tiny little spoon, like a dessert spoon that you can get from the Dollar Tree. They really work well for me. I can just tap the side of the spoon and lay it down pretty easily. And I'm just getting any scatters that found its way off of the board before I lay down my flood coat. And once again, I'm just going to pop any bubbles and heat that resin up, making sure that I get in all of the many edges that I have now, all along those stations, making sure that that resin is touching the borders of those stones. If you need to, just use your finger and make that happen. Carry it along the side of the board. I hope that you're enjoying this video, and just a reminder that I have so many more videos that are available for watching, and I hope that you will consider subscribing and give me a thumbs up. Let me know what you like about it. Tell me what else you'd like to see. And I'd most importantly love for you to subscribe. It really means a lot to my channel, and I love my interactions with you. Drop me a comment and tell me if this is your first time. If you are a follower of mine, thank you so much for being here and supporting me. I really, really do appreciate it. It means so much. I feel like I'm finally beginning to get some momentum here. It really does take a lot for YouTubers to gain that momentum, and we couldn't do it without your help. And I'm just very grateful. And here is the debut of my amazonite and crystal point geode. I still have the tape on the back. It hasn't even been that long since I could handle it. Very carefully bringing it out to take some pictures here. And this is probably around 4:30 in the evening, so we don't have the benefit of having the sunshine on it too much. This is in the back of my yard. You can see a little bit of that luster there. I think it's beautiful. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you the next time.